In every palace, there is always a throne, but not every princess deserves to sit on it. Long ago in Benin City, Nigeria, a place famous for its beautiful brass sculptures and other fine art, there lived a rich and wise king named Oba Zuwanda. His people loved him, his enemies feared him, and elders from far and wide respected him. But the king had no son to inherit his throne. He had only 3 daughters, Princess Amade, Princess Ovia, and Princess Abe Gun. The king had always dreamed of raising his daughters to be wise, brave, and strong. He didn't want them to grow up spoiled by palace life or treated differently just because of their royal blood. So, he made a quiet decision to keep their identities a secret from the outside world. No one beyond the palace walls knew who they truly were. The girls lived like ordinary people, learning, playing, and walking among the townsfolk without anyone calling them princess. Oba Zuwanda believed this was the only way they could truly grow. If no one knows your name, you are safe, he would often say. The world outside the palace is not as dangerous as the world within it, not if you stay unseen. To him, true strength wasn't found in gold or titles, but in how they treated others, how they carried themselves, and how they faced life when no one was watching. But as the years passed, the 3 princesses began to grow into very different women. Amade, the eldest, was the picture of grace and elegance. Her walk was smooth like water, her voice soft like silk. But beneath her beauty was a deep hunger for admiration. She believed that power lay in perfection. A woman must be flawless, she would whisper each morning to her mirror, as if casting a spell. She spent endless hours smoothing oils into her skin until it gleamed, arranging her hair strand by strand, and choosing the finest fabrics brought from faraway lands. Her room smelled of perfume and foreign spices, and her reflection became her closest friend. While palace workers moved quietly through the halls, sweating and serving, Amade rarely noticed. Her world was built of silk and mirrors, a place where beauty was everything, and everyone else faded into the background. Ovia, the second-born, burned with fire. She was bold, loud, and fearless, a storm in human form. While Amade danced with grace, Ovia charged like thunder. "I am the boy child my father never had," she would shout, fists on her hips. "I should have been born a boy." She meant every word. Ovia rode horses like a warrior, fast and wild, her laughter echoing through the palace gates. She trained with the palace guards, practiced swordplay in secret, and once climbed the palace roof just to prove she could. Rules? She broke them. Warnings? She laughed at them. She wasn't afraid to speak her mind, even in council meetings where elders sat stiff with tradition. She would interrupt, challenge, argue, never backing down. Once, in a burst of fury, she slapped a royal guard who tried to block her from the treasury. "Who dares stop a daughter of the Oba?" she had roared. Ovia was strength without apology, but sometimes, that strength came with storms. Abe Gun, the youngest of the 3, was quiet, so quiet, you might not notice her in a room. She moved like a shadow, her eyes always watching, her thoughts hidden behind a calm face. But inside her, a storm brewed. She watched Amade admired for her beauty. She watched Ovia praised for her courage. And deep in her heart, a seed of envy took root. Abe Gun didn't want to be like them, she wanted to be better than them. Always watching. Always copying. Always hungry for what wasn't hers. If Amade wore silk, Abe Gun searched for finer cloth. If Ovia won praise for her boldness, Abe Gun would speak louder, take more risks, even if it felt unnatural. She didn't want to be left behind, forgotten in their shadow. She wanted to outshine them, to take the light for herself. But the more she tried to become them, the more she lost pieces of who she truly was. Abe Gun was a mystery, even to herself. Each princess was beautiful in her own way, their names whispered in courts far beyond Benin. Suitors came from distant lands, bearing gifts and promises. But not all came for love. Most came because they knew whose daughters they were. Royal blood drew attention. Power drew desire. One quiet evening, as the sun dipped low and shadows stretched across the palace walls, Oba Zuwanda called his daughters and the kingdom's elders into the great hall. He stood tall, but there was a weight in his voice. "My time is coming to an end," he said slowly. "And I have no son." The hall grew still. "The throne must go to the daughter who proves she is worthy, not by charm, not by beauty, but by wisdom, by patience, and by the courage to lead with love." A murmur moved through the room. "You will each have 1 year, 12 moons, to go out into the kingdom. You will leave behind your guards, your jewels, your titles. You will carry nothing but your hands, your minds, and your hearts." The task was simple, yet heavy with meaning. Go and live among the people. Work as they work. Eat as they eat. Feel their struggles. Learn what it means to serve before you rule. One by one, the princesses were sent out, each to a different corner of the kingdom, dressed as commoners, their royal names hidden. Just before they parted ways, their father looked into each of their eyes and said, "Remember, beauty does not equal wisdom." And with that, the journey to the throne truly began. Princess Amade was sent to Ori, a wealthy city filled with polished smiles and golden lies. The people there loved luxury, praised appearances, and wore status like a crown. It was the perfect place for a maid. She fit in like silk on skin. Instead of learning humility, she crafted a false identity, the elegant daughter of a successful merchant. She quickly became the talk of the city. Everywhere she went, whispers followed. Her beauty turned heads. Her presence filled rooms. And then came Emeka, a rich, charming businessman with expensive taste and darker secrets. He offered her comfort, luxury, and the illusion of love. They married in a quiet ceremony, and Amade thought she had won. But behind closed doors, Emeka was cruel. His love turned to violence. His words cut deeper than blade. He beat her in silence but paraded her beauty to attract investors to his shady empire. Still, Amade endured. "I can take it," she told herself. "Just 1 more month. Just until the year is over. Then I will return as queen, and he will pay." But there were things she didn't know. Emeka was already married, with sons. A second life waited for him in his hometown, where people whispered his real name and knew the truth Amade never saw. One night, the truth arrived in flames. Emeka's wife came with her sons, their anger hot and wild. They set the house ablaze. Emeka disappeared into the smoke. Amade was beaten, narrowly escaped being burned alive, and left with nothing. With burns on her back and shame in her eyes, she returned to the palace months later. Her beauty dimmed. Her silence louder than any words. Her dreams of the crown, gone. She had not lasted the year. And by royal law, she was no longer in the running to become queen. Ovia was sent to Yala, a quiet farming village in the northern Cross River. From the moment she arrived, she hated it. The dust clung to her skin. The food smelled strange. The people asked too many questions. It wasn't the life she was used to, and she made sure everyone knew it. She found shelter with a kind old widow named Mama Ogre, who offered her a place to stay for free, no questions asked. But instead of showing gratitude, Ovia did nothing. She refused to learn, refused to help. She mocked the village women for working the land from dawn to dusk. "You people farm too much," she would laugh. "Your lives are pathetic." But when the sun set and the baskets were full, she never said no to the meals they brought home. Then came Bassi, a hunter who passed through Yala like wind through trees. He was rough around the edges, strong, and silent. Dangerous. Just Ovia's type. They began a secret affair, full of stolen kisses and risk. It gave her a thrill. But Bassi was no fool, and no prince. When he realized she brought more trouble than joy, he walked away. By then, the village had already had enough. Her insults. Her laziness. Her pride. Word had reached the king. Mama Ogre was told to send her away. But the old woman, full of grace, refused. "She is a stranger," she said gently. "She still needs help." Then came the final shame. When the villagers discovered her affair with Bassi, it was like dry leaves meeting fire. Anger spread. Mama Ogre's compound was stoned. Ovia was dragged to the town square, bruised and humiliated. "I did nothing wrong," she cried. "He was the one who chased me. I'm a princess." "No," a woman spat. "You're just foolish." And so, barefoot and bleeding, Ovia fled into the night. She returned to the palace broken and bitter, her crown, like her pride, left behind in the dust. She too had failed to complete her one-year journey. And like Amade, she was no longer in line for the throne. Abe Gun was sent to Benin, a quiet fishing town in River State, where the sea sings old songs and the wind carries secrets. She was placed in the care of Uncle Tobe, a humble teacher known for his wisdom and quiet strength. He welcomed her with kindness and taught her discipline and honesty. He believed in discipline and slow growth. But Abe Gun wanted more. She didn't care for slow. She wanted fast power. Big attention. Soon, she began whispering into the villagers' ears, planting seeds of doubt between neighbors. She stirred gossip like soup, turning friends into enemies. Then she found her trick, pretending to see the future. "I had a dream," she would say. "The spirit spoke to me." The town, long known for its spiritual ties to the water, believed her. Tales of the mermaid kingdom still lived in their bones, and Abe Gun knew just how to use them. She dressed in white, let her hair grow long and wild, and walked barefoot like a priestess from the sea. People came with offerings. They paid her to bless their homes, to speak to the spirits, to see what tomorrow held. And she gave them stories wrapped in lies. Her name spread far and wide. Money flowed like the river. She began dressing like royalty, beads, silk, and headpieces fit for a queen mother. But it still wasn't enough. She wanted the real crown. Then one day, she learned a secret, one whispered by an elder. Uncle Tobe wasn't just a teacher. He was a forgotten prince. King Zuwanda's cousin, once banished from the palace long ago. Abe Gun's eyes lit up. This was her chance. She cornered him one night, her voice sharp as a blade. "Help me get the throne," she hissed, "or I will expose you." But Tobe had nothing to fear. The very next day, he gathered the village and told them the truth himself, who he was, what he had done, and everything Abe Gun had been doing. He pulled off her mask. The villagers felt betrayed. Lied to. Used. Her shrine was burned. Her name cursed. She was chased from the village, stumbling barefoot into the forest, the smoke of her lies still rising behind her. And so, like her sisters, Abe Gun returned to the palace, empty-handed, in rags, with shame heavy on her back. All three daughters had failed. The year came to an end, and the air around the palace grew heavy with expectation. King Zuwanda sat on his throne, aged by time and sorrow. He had waited. He had hoped. Now, it was time to face the truth. He called for his daughters. The palace courtyard filled with murmuring voices. People pushed forward, eager to see the daughters of the Oba for the first time. Who are they? We've never seen them before. Then the gates opened. Amade stepped forward, her head bowed, a veil pulled halfway across her face. The silk that once wrapped her like royalty now seemed like a costume. She walked in silence, shame clinging to her skin. From the crowd, someone shouted, "Is that not the one who stole another woman's husband for money?" Whispers turned into outrage. "No way. She cannot rule us with her greed." Then came Ovia, limping, bruised, and full of bitterness. Her eyes still held fire, but her body told a story of defeat. "The lazy one?" Someone yelled. "She mocked our mothers while feeding off their work. She cannot be queen." And finally, Abe Gun arrived, dressed in rags, lips trembling with excuses. She opened her mouth to speak, but the crowd roared back. "A liar cannot lead us. She used us and called it prophecy." King Zuwanda looked at them, his daughters, and his heart cracked in silence. The disappointment in his eyes spoke louder than any words. Then, from the edge of the crowd, a quiet figure stepped forward. A young woman, dark-skinned and graceful, wearing a plain gown sewn from wrapper cloth. Her eyes held both gentleness and truth. She walked with no fear, only purpose. She bowed gently before the king. "Your Majesty," she said softly, "my name is Astray. My mother was Isiosa, your first wife." The courtyard fell still. The king's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. "You sent her away," she continued, "after a prophecy said you would never have a male child." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Murmurs rose like waves. Guards walked forward waiting for the obus order. But then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small gold ring, worn but unmistakable. The king's breath caught. The elders stepped forward to examine it. It bore the royal crest of his bloodline, the same ring given only to the obus' first wife. It was real. Truth struck the crowd like thunder. Astray was not just a stranger. She was the lost firstborn. The daughter forgotten by fear, but remembered by fate. She had no scandals. No secrets. No stains. She had lived among the people, working, listening, serving. She had learned leadership from the ground up. A cheer erupted. "Astray is our queen. The crown fits Astray." And for the first time in many years, King Zuwanda wept. "I tried to raise queens," he said, voice shaking. "But I planted them in shallow soil, but she served as a servant even when she was a princess." With trembling hands, he placed the crown on Astray's head. The crowd erupted in joy. "Long live our queen!" they chanted, voices rising like a wave. Men, women, elders, and children, all dropped to their knees in respect. They bowed not just to royalty, but to truth. To wisdom. To someone who had earned the crown. Astray stood tall, her plain gown fluttering in the breeze, the golden crown resting humbly on her head. She did not smile in pride, she smiled in peace. Then, quietly, one by one, Amade stepped forward, her eyes low with regret. She bowed. Ovia, still bruised but no longer angry, followed. She bowed. Abe Gun, tears slipping down her face, lowered herself to the ground. She bowed. The daughters who once thought the throne was their birthright now bowed to the one who had proven herself worthy. Their sister. Their queen. And from that day forward, she ruled with wisdom. With peace. With strength that came from humility, not pride. Her sisters learned under her. One day, they asked her how she stayed so grounded despite being born of royal blood. She smiled gently and said, "Because I grew up watching power abuse itself." The end. If you love our story, please subscribe to our channel to support us. Like, share, and tell us where you're watching from in the comment section. Thank you. Moral lessons. 1. Beauty without character is like a drum, loud but empty. 2. Power gained through lies will always collapse. 3. Real leadership begins with service, not titles. 4. Jealousy is a fire that burns the one who starts it. 5. The child you hide or reject today may be the one who saves you tomorrow.
I love you.